Welcome to the Gay Buddhist Forum, where teachers from all schools of Buddhism offer their perspectives on the Dharma and its application in modern times, especially for LGBTQI audiences. These talks are offered freely to the world and made possible by appreciative listeners. If you would like to support our efforts to share the Dharma with underserved audiences, please visit gaybuddhist.org. There you can donate, find a list of upcoming speakers, or enjoy many hundreds of these recorded talks dating back to 1996.
We'll begin our evening puja with the dedication of offerings on the front page of the chant handout. You'll see in the English translation that this is the chant that begins the morning and evening puja, and it speaks to making offerings. So in a traditional sense, you could think of these as the offerings that are made at the altar. These are often offerings of light in the form of a candle or postmodern fire-safe candles. But it's the light that counts. And offerings of water, offerings of nourishment, like you'll see mounds of fruit or beautifully arranged treats, offerings of incense for the fragrance of virtue, the fragrance of goodness, the light of the clear mind, the nourishment of the open heart. So these are traditional offerings. The temple tenders here keep the offerings fresh, the beautiful flowers. And so when I do this chant, you can think about, you can relate to the altar and the formal material offerings, but you can also think about, what is it that we offer or that we give generously of in the course of our practice. There's a discourse of the Buddhas that it's called the Blessing Sutta, the Mangala Sutta. It's chanted as a protection spell, and it's very beloved. And in it, a deity asks the Buddha, "What are the highest blessings?" And then sings a whole song about them. And the first verse in it says that to honor that which is worthy of honor, that is the highest blessing. Don't get tripped up on highest. Every verse in it says this is the highest blessing. It's a whole list of things. To practice the pure heart and mind, this is the highest blessing. You can just say this is a blessing supreme. I like that translation. But this beautiful first verse encompasses the feeling in the heart we can bring to this kind of practice, to honor that which is worthy of honor. So we're honoring the Triple Gem, we're honoring the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, the teachings that show the way, the community that walks the path with us and that shows the way. And so the offering is really, what is it we bring of ourselves to this practice and to the community practice, such that what we are bringing honors that which is worthy of honor. So feel into the offering part of the puja and what it might mean to bring forward an energetic offering from your heart to honor that which is worthy of honor. So we'll sing the dedication of offerings, first in Pali and then in English. Yoso bhagava araham samma sambuddho swakato yena bhagavata dhammo supatipanno yasa bhagavato savaka sangho Tamayang bhagavantang sadammang sasangang Imehi sakarehi yatarahang aropitehi abhipujayam sadhuno bante bhagava suchira parini bhutopi pachimma janatanu kampamanasa imme sakare dugata panna karabhute patiganhatu Amha kangdi garatang hitaya sukhaya arahang samma sambullo bhagava buddhang bhagavantang abhivademi Swakato bhagavata dhammo Dhammang namasami Supatipanno bhagavato savaka sangho sanghang namami. And in English. To the Blessed One, the Lord who fully attained perfect enlightenment, to the teaching which he expounded so well, and to the Blessed One's disciples who have practiced well, to these the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha, we render with offerings our rightful homage. It is well for us that the Blessed One, having attained liberation, still had compassion for later generations. May these simple offerings be accepted for our long-lasting benefit and for the happiness it gives us. The Lord, the perfectly enlightened and Blessed One, I render homage to the Buddha, the Blessed One. The teaching so completely explained by him, I bow to the Dhamma. The Blessed One's disciples who have practiced well, I bow to the Sangha. Homage to the Buddha. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to the Blessed, Noble, and Perfectly Enlightened One. Homage to the Blessed, Noble, and Perfectly Enlightened One. Homage to the Blessed, Noble, and Perfectly Enlightened One. For the recollection of the Triple Gem, we'll do it now in a little more traditional style. We'll sing all the way through the Pali, so all 3 verses, and then we'll do all of the English together. The recollection of the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. Tam ko panna bhagavantang evam kalyano kirti sadho abhugato Iti piso bhagava arahang samma sambuddho vinja charana sampanno sugato lokavidu anutaro purisa dhamma sarati sata deva manu sanam buddho bhagava tisuakato bhagavata dhammo Sanditiko akaliko ehipasiko opanaiko pachatang veditabo vinyu iti supatipanno bhagavato savaka sango ujupatipanno bhagavato savaka sango nyayapatipanno bhagavato savaka sango Samichi patipanno bhagavato savaka sango yadidang chatari purisa yuganiyat purisa pugala esa bhagavato savaka sango ahoneyo pahoneyo dakineyo anjali karaniyo anutarang punya ketang lokasati. A good word of the Blessed One's reputation has spread as follows. He, the Blessed One, is indeed the Pure One, the perfectly enlightened One. He is impeccable in conduct and understanding, the accomplished One, the knower of the worlds. He trains perfectly those who wish to be trained. He is teacher of gods and humans. He is awake and holy. The Dhamma is well expounded by the Blessed One, apparent here and now, timeless, encouraging investigation, leading inwards, to be experienced individually by the wise. They are the Blessed One's disciples who have practiced well, who have practiced directly, who have practiced insightfully, those who practice with integrity. That is the 4 pairs, the 8 kinds of noble beings. These are the Blessed One's disciples. Such ones are worthy of gifts, worthy of hospitality, worthy of offerings, worthy of respect. They give occasion for incomparable goodness to arise in the world. So in the evenings, instead of doing the salutation to the Triple Gem, we'll skip to the Discourse on Loving Kindness on page 6, the Metta Sutta. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm and wise and skillful, not proud and demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove, wishing in gladness and in safety. May all beings be at ease, whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born. May all beings be at ease. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another. Even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, so with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings, radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded, freed from hatred and ill will. Whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, free from drowsiness, one should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding. By not holding to fixed views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into this world. We'll settle the body for meditation. Just finding your comfortable posture. And as the body settles, it finds again the familiar stillness. Let the mind, the attention, come to the heart. You can come to the area of the physical heart at the center of the chest. Or just the sense of the whole body as a field of kindness. And we'll invite or invoke the tender heart of compassion for ourselves and others, of loving kindness. And beginning with ourselves, just feeling the effort you've put in today, the goodness, the sincere wish for freedom and peace that brought you here. Can you feel your basic goodness? And appreciate that. Give rise to a warmth of heart for yourself with all your struggles, all your beauties. And a most basic form of loving kindness practice, metta practice, is to find the feeling of kindness. And then just let that feeling, the energy of the kind heart, let it grow to fill the body, so that it's shining out in all directions. We start with ourselves, to not forget that this can be one of the most difficult places to be kind. And to plant the seed of kindness right there. Whatever warmth of heart you find here, the wish for your own well-being, the wish for each other's well-being, let it begin to shine out. Just as you long for peace and freedom from anxiety and stress, so too does the person sitting next to you, and all of us in this room, and everyone here on this land, human and non-human, in form and beyond form. Throughout the whole wide world, full of people of all types, full of all the beauty and ugliness, the good and evil that humans move in the world. You shine the heart of compassion and kindness. Out in all directions. Well, this is a style of practice that doesn't use phrases. You can use them if you've learned them. But you could also just stay with the breath moving the whole body. And bring the warmth of the kind heart to the breathing body. And then spread that feeling of the warm heart out from the body, in front and to the sides, behind you and above and below. The sutta says, with a boundless heart, should one cherish all living beings, radiating kindness over the entire world. This is not to be thought about so much as felt. How do you radiate kindness? You can do it by softening the attention so that it doesn't land on any one thing, but it stays with just the feeling of the benevolent heart. It stays with the sense of the body as a light, as a kind of lamp. And let the energy of it fill the body, no part left out. And let it grow as the mind quiets. And the feeling becomes sweeter and sweeter, radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, outward and unbounded. Free from hatred and ill will. It's only possible to love all beings if we can figure out how to not hate them. And so metta, or loving kindness, is always interwoven with wisdom. It has to have wisdom and equanimity. To understand that the evil in the world is trauma and ancient karma that will continue to spin until it's unbound by beings becoming awakened. And until that happens, everyone deserves compassion, even the worst human. And that's a radical practice. Let the breath fill the body. Let the energy of the kind heart fill the body. And the energy is the object of meditation. It's the thing that we focus on. Just breathing into the feeling of kindness. Until it washes over every other thought, every complaint. So we'll practice in this way, radiating kindness over the entire world. Coming into the great silence of the heart that needs nothing to be different in this moment. And gazes with infinite care and compassion on every one of us and everyone else. So we have a short period really just to move the legs around, stretch a little bit before the talk, the closing sitting. So you could do a little walking meditation, or just keep meditating, as you like. Of course, we're in silence. And let's have, whoever's the bell ringer, let's have a bell in about 5 minutes, and then folks will come back by 1:15 for the talk. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. So. So part of the intention in this retreat is held in the phrase that we included as part of the title of the retreat, deepening our practice. A lot of you are long-time practitioners of the Dhamma. This group has been going for many, many years. Many of you have been with it for many years. And that means you've heard many, many, many different teachers talk on aspects of the Buddha's teachings from different perspectives. And this is such a wonderful thread to weave through, the weeks and months and years of a life. So then, with that kind of background, and I know, that most of you have a fair amount of practice, but of very different kinds. What might it mean to deepen our practice? One piece is in the word "our," and in the magic of coming together in the retreat space, in the weaving between the inward focus of the silent times and the possible outward focus of the relational time of day. Well, some of it is how do we deepen together our practice? I like that it's maybe our practice, not my practice, and your practice. But there's one practice, and here it is. You can also interpret that hour internally. A nice metaphor for dealing with the mind is to think of the mind as, like a committee or a board of directors, a fractious board sometimes, or a family. Like they do very skillfully in work like internal family systems work, where you're like, well, this part, this part is critical of everything, and this part just wants to get laid, and this part is really mad at this other part, and this part just wants to be loved, and this part doesn't think anybody notices him at all, and and that's an angry old Uncle Joe over there, grousing about things, and it's all in here. And on the board there's the one who always talks and takes up a lot of space, and the one who's brilliant but never gets a word in edgewise, and the one who's really shy but actually super kind and insightful. And you have to work to uplift certain voices and contain other voices. So that also is our practice. How do I deepen our practice? But I'm thinking about deepening partly in the context of being a group of practitioners with some experience, and where the median age is a bit lifted here. Some folks here are getting on toward the next chapter, wherever we go from here. And that means that the truth of the matter is at hand. And so deepening partly means, how do we get more real? How do we include parts of ourself, our community, the world, life experience that we might have had an easier time to exclude or ignore in earlier chapters of our life. So, in terms of practice, coming on retreat, deepening might be thought of in a few different ways. I'm going to emphasize two tonight that track roughly with a very traditional division of the practices that the Buddha brought forward into samatha and vipassana, or practices oriented toward steadying, calming, and stilling the mind and the bodily energies, the thinking mind mostly, and then working with the bodily energies to stabilize. That's the samatha side. Samatha literally means serenity or calming, centering, steadying. And the other side is the vipassana side. Vipassana is a Pali word that means clarity, seeing clearly. I love the French translation of vipassana, which is la vision profonde, the profound vision, profound seeing profoundly. And vipassana can be understood in this sense as the orientation of practice that's toward understanding, and it goes through practices like inquiry and investigation. So we're broadly enjoined to do these two things. First, to work on steadiness, and then to accompany that by an attitude of exploration, curiosity, investigation. Part of work on steadiness is not just calming. That's kind of one side of the practice, the tranquilizing side. But there's also a side that's really how do we work with energy? Because part of calming is really the practices that lead towards samadhi, absorption or immersion of the mind, deep steadiness, stillness. Working with those is not just about quieting the thinking mind. I'm calling that a preliminary for a reason. That's actually not the end goal. It's not even the main practice. It's a thing that prepares the ground for the cultivation of these states. It's springtime, so we just cleared some beds. I built a couple new raised beds. So in the old beds, we're clearing out old plants, weeding, putting in new compost, refreshing the soil, laying layers of good soil and compost into the new beds. And I love the moment when the bed is like well tended and it's juiced up with compost, and then you rake the top, and you've got kind of I get kind of obsessive about like the little crumbly bits of twig and clods of earth, and I do just love a beautifully raked bed. There's an old saying among architects: the house is perfect the day before the client moves in. Right? The garden bed is perfect before you plant the seeds. Because as soon as you plant them, we planted all the beautiful snap peas, and they came up with their like tender little shoots, their little pea shoot selves, and we were like, oh, the pea shoots are up, and then a day later, the birds took every last leaf. There was the bed that looked like it was doing so great. The gophers got through the gopher wire. It's devastation. Apocalypse in the beets and carrots. Sorry, guys. So once you're actually growing the garden, it's so dynamic, and there's things to grow and things to weed out, and amendment is needed, and it's complicated. So, coming into the body, coming into presence, and setting aside the stuff of the mind, that's a little bit like the spring clearing. Like first just get out last year's, old, dead tomato plants. That's memory and regret. All the things that didn't grow the way you wanted or weren't quite as tasty as you wanted. Or this one wax zucchini plant that grew like crazy, and you had 50,000 zucchinis and everybody hated you. You were leaving them on their doorstep in the middle of the night. Your neighbors, they were like, cut it out with the zucchini, but nothing else grew, right? You clear it out. That's the mind. That's the past. And you make a bed, and that's the preliminary. And then you begin cultivating. You begin growing the qualities of relaxation and attention and focus. And to do that, you start working with the energies. You start working with, you could think of them as, somatic energies or channels, an expanding energy, a contracting energy. Some traditions visualize these as channels on either side of the spine. You can do visualization practices with them, breath practices, emotional intelligence practices, right? Coming into contact with the wanting, and the fearing and the confusion. And so to deepen in samatha, in the centering side, is one of the special things we can do on retreat, because the conditions are ripe for it. You get enough silence, enough space, enough support. Somebody's cooking for you. You don't have to get on your screen. Please don't. And so often on retreat there's a focus on deepening in the direction of samadhi in a way that is more difficult to do in ordinary life. And so a lot of the meditation instructions that I'm giving will point in that direction. In contemporary Dharma worlds, in many different traditions, but very much in the insight tradition and broadly in kind of secular, popularized Buddhism now, there's a huge focus on mindfulness by itself, on becoming present with sensations as they unfold, with experiences as they unfold. And this is tremendously helpful. It's almost like mindfulness is the wedge we can get in to the tumult of ordinary life. Mindfulness is, learning to pause, actually notice what's happening. Remembering to come back to the body when things are swirling. The word for mindfulness, sati, is related to the word for memory. Partly it means remember to practice, remember what's happening here. And also, if you're present with something very directly as it's happening, you're more likely to remember it later. It's related to the skill needed to remember long passages of text, for instance. And so mindfulness is tremendously useful. But mindfulness traditionally is also never taken as a practice by itself, outside of the context of the whole path. And particularly in meditation, is never really held separate from the practice of absorption or jhana, samadhi. And so the goal of meditation isn't just to be present with things as they happen, but that presence is a prerequisite for steadiness, for deep stillness. Part of what's wonderful about samadhi, whether very gentle or very deep samadhi, any amount of gathering and stabilizing the mind, is that once we have even a little taste of it, we can notice that it's very pleasurable. This is why I love telling that story of the Buddha as a child under the rose apple tree. Because the thing he discovers is one of the most beautiful forms of pleasure the mind can find in this life. And if we get good at it, it's a reliable, safe, non-addictive, profound bliss that by itself begins to unbind the attachments that otherwise bewitch the mind and the heart. And so any amount of finding peace in stillness and silence, finding peacefulness in a walk through the woods, rather than seeking a more busy or sharp entertainment in some other way, any amount of that is healthy and hard to learn to delight in the world that we have right now. So we have a strong encouragement toward exploring, becoming an artist of the pathways towards stillness. It's probable that the list of the hindrances, for instance, which many of you be familiar with, are most directly understood as hindrances to samadhi, hindrances to concentration. So what is it that keeps the mind from being able to settle into a pleasurable, easeful stillness? The first two hindrances are sensual desire and ill will. And you can think of these as these two as kind of stand-ins for the two big flavors of emotional distress. Sensual desire is, everything that constricts the heart in the direction of wanting things to be different than they are, wanting contact with pleasurable things and people and situations and experiences. Everything in the wanting, lust, greed, craving, clinging spectrum. And it's particularly the craving for contact with something through the senses. I want to see something, taste, smell, touch something. I want to dance with somebody. I want to feel the heat with somebody. This is, all of the realms of beauty in the world where we're moving the energy of eros are, at their best, a divine form of contact with aliveness, right? And you know this because you've felt it at different times. We all have it in moments of peak contact with the beautiful. Through the arts, through immersion in nature, through sexuality, through music, through dancing, through all the good things that humans do. Where we move the energy of the senses in the direction of delight. So this is beautiful. It's not a hindrance. Right? The energies of eros are not a hindrance, except when your plan is to become still. Except when you come and the thing you're doing is aiming for this deep steadiness or centeredness of samadhi. That's where they become a hindrance, because if I'm getting still, then what is sensuality? Engaging with the senses is a kind of going outside myself. So it's really specific to meditation. And in meditation, there can be I can set that down. It's not just specific to meditation. Like, of course, you can get out of whack around any sensual pleasure, right? I know you have, I have, we do this. Wanting is a hindrance anytime in your life, not just in meditation. Anytime the thing you're going after and craving is actually getting in the way of a kind of peace or centeredness, or knowing of yourself, or being at ease in the world. And so working with it means working with the energy that arises in the body and the heart, that coalesces in this kind of wanting. And the same, in a way, in the flip side with ill will, the energy of hatred or pushing away. In relation to the senses, this is the desire to not be in contact with something that's unpleasant. someone, some experience, some situation. And again, it's an emotion and an energy. And again, there's a place in our lives out in the world where it's a wholesome energy to recognize with discernment what's wrong, let's say, in the world, and to move some force to change that. Right? Social action and activism and just being proactive in your life on behalf of goodness is an appropriate use of that energy. But it's a hindrance when it coalesces into ill will or hatred, right? Where it slips away from discernment and clarity about what's good, and it becomes hating, resisting, reacting. And the same on the internal. So we have to deal with energy. So the first two hindrances are these kinds of emotional energies. The hindrances 3 and 4 are even more purely energetic, I think of them as. One is sloth and torpor. So that's the dull energy. That's the not enough energy hindrance. And then restlessness and worry is the too much energy hindrance. So you have to deal with just charge in the nervous system itself. Traditionally, sloth. These are the old Victorian translations, but they've stuck, so you've all heard them mostly. Sloth, of course, is not just dullness, but it's laziness. So get on the cushion, lazy person. That's the emotion of not wanting to do it. I don't want to do it. I don't want to go sit. I don't want to. That's sloth. And torpor is actually more the physical, like just sleepy, dull, freezy, collapsed energy. And likewise with restlessness and worry. Restlessness can have, can have a kind of pure sort of bodily energy to it. There's just a kind of jumpiness in the system. And worry, or sometimes it's translated restlessness and remorse. I like remorse. That there's a mental quality of like, I can't let it go. I'm just spinning with the thing. I can't put it down. All of these kind of energetic imbalances have to be tended in order for samadhi to assemble and stabilize. And so, all of the yogic practices, working with the breath, working with the body, are tremendously helpful in working with the hindrances in meditation, more than we often give them credit for. Sometimes when I'm talking with students and someone's having a hard time, either in the anxiety direction, which is often like, uncontained energy, or in the depression direction, right, dampened energy, and they want to know how to meditate with it or how to be mindful with it, sometimes, my first question is like, how's your sleep and how's your exercise? Like, are you actually working with the body in a way that's conducive to balanced energy? How's your food? How's your social life? Balanced energy is not that different, actually, from contentment. There's a way that when the energies are balanced, steadied, there's just less drama. There's less of the constriction of wanting, the fear and ill will pushing away. When we come to sit, there's naturally a delight in coming to stillness, because some of the constrictions in the body have been worked out. We've been working with breath, working with directing attention to move energy around. And the energetic work is a long topic, like there's lots to say about that. But just to ping briefly that the hindrances, I think broadly as energetic imbalances. But a different way to say that is that they are nervous system symptoms. And that's a way of saying that I think of them often as trauma symptoms. And again, I won't go super much into the trauma thing, but here's a little way to think about it. When we come into presence, what we find is the cumulative result of everything we've experienced in the past that is not yet resolved. And so, anxiety and depression, restlessness and dullness, grasping and fearing, can all be felt into as states that have resulted from the life that I've had so far. And there's a lot in here that's just straight up therapy material. You know, how was your childhood? How were your parents? What of that am I carrying into the present? When we look at the nervous system, we're looking at the animal body's reactions to experience moment to moment. When do I get startled? What gives rise to activation that may not be story based, but that doesn't allow me to settle into steadiness? So in the nervous system, you can think classically of the states fight, flight, and freeze, and there's variations of those that have been brought forward in recent years. But those three track very nicely onto states and experiences connected with activation in the animal body that's oriented toward protecting ourselves. And so the sympathetic nervous system activates blood flow to the musculature, gets us going in order to fight or flee from danger. Nowadays, many of us, and hopefully this is the case, aren't in, overt physical attack kind of danger, perhaps as much as our animal ancestors were and are in some places, and our human brethren are in some places. May they be safe. But the nervous system is the same. You get startled, something is frightening, whether it's happening in this moment or it's a thought of something that happened long ago or something that might happen next week, but probably won't, but it might, and so you're worried. That's enough to startle the nervous system. And here comes the fight system, right? And if it doesn't get to manifest as muscular engagement to protect us, it's going to manifest as emotional activation, trying to do the same thing. And so the anger spectrum lives on the fight side. Everything from frustration and grumpiness up through anger and rage. Or it comes out on the flight side. How can I get away from this danger? And again, maybe you're not, and hopefully you're not being physically threatened such that you need to physically run, but you may feel energy in the legs. Flight is a muscular phenomenon. How do I escape attack? But so many of the things that frighten us now can't be run from. The state of the world, the climate crisis, and that's a mild word. The crisis in our politics and our life around race, the ongoing violence, directed toward all sorts of folks in oppressed classes, the continuation of a deep homophobia in this culture in many places, violence against queer folks, and all of the violence against trans folks and folks of varying genders, racialized violence, religious violence. The systemic crises and dangers are not what our nervous system developed to run from. You can't run from racism. You can't run from, any of the big oppressive forces. They are the culture. you can pretend to run from them. You can move to, like, I don't know where, an eco village in Costa Rica for a minute, like somewhere, I don't know. But it doesn't actually do it. What you can do is you can shelter yourself temporarily in order to heal, which is why, the eco-village and the retreat center and all the places are good places to do healing work. But it's likely that the nervous system that's responding to a cultural system can only really get temporary reprieve in those places. We actually have to figure out how to process that energy and not just be in flight, not just be in fight mode with it. Because the third of the systems, the freeze system, is what the body does when fight and flight are impossible. When a threat is present and it can't be protected against, the body decides that if we're going to be eaten by the tiger, it's best not to feel it. And so there's a wing of the parasympathetic nervous system that kicks in to wash the body with analgesic chemicals. They're painkillers. That takes attention out of the body and away from the site of danger. If you've ever been attacked or in an accident and you were in shock afterward, that's freeze. And that's the good part about freeze. Freeze is beautiful. It's there for a reason. All of these states of the nervous system are there for a reason. They're there to protect us and keep us alive. But if we don't figure out how to give them the conditions to deactivate, then we live our lives coursing with stress because we were startled once as a child or 100 times and we never fully resolved it, and so there's a bit of flight in our system forever. And how do we move through that? And you'll never enter samadhi with nervous system activation clogging the system. That's why so much of this practice is purification, coming into contact with difficult feelings again and again, and moving them and singing them out and talking them through and dropping down a layer of stillness and moving the body and deepening the breath and dropping down a layer of stillness. Just for completeness sake, we have to do the fifth hindrance, which is doubt. It's the most mental of them. And it's really the stand-in for all of the talk that we do in the mind to ourselves that takes us away from really being able to engage with our practice, with our life. Doubt is the voice that says, don't bother, or it's not going to work anyway, or I'm just not good enough to do it, or I'm better than this, so I don't have to bother. Doubt is the voice that says, this practice hasn't really worked for me yet, so maybe this practice is not actually all it's cracked up to be. Some gurus are, clearly shysters. Therefore, all gurus are shysters. Therefore, I'm not going to believe in any teachers ever. This is all of the layers of the mind that has every excuse in the world to not engage with life. And I think just like all the other hindrances, it's a kind of self-protective impulse. Sometimes I think that the most dangerous philosophy in the world, partly because nobody thinks that they subscribe to it, even when they do, is nihilism. It's the idea that nothing really matters. that when we die, nothing really happens, that good and evil are just old concepts, and that everything's basically okay, but not that great, and doesn't really matter anyway. And, this, it's easy to make fun of, but this is actually a core, extremely widespread worldview in the modern world. Especially if you've tried to recover from, Christianity or Judaism or Islam or one of the big, more repressive faiths, and, you found the scientific materialist consensus that, everything is just swirling molecules, forces of nature. And therefore you don't have to really care about any of it. Or you care, but that's kind of just sort of on the emotional level. It's a hard philosophy to refute, because you can only refute it by caring. And by turning toward that which you don't yet know. Part of what's so dangerous about doubt is that it suggests that you know it already. You know enough to refute the Dhamma, or to refute the teacher, or to you already know that you're not good enough to succeed, so why try? All of those stories are the doubt demon. And again, they're protecting us. They're protecting us from the feeling of failure, from feeling like, nihilism protects us a bit from the intuition that we really don't know what the universe is about, and that it's far vaster than we know. And that's frightening. And so to just decide that it's meaningless is much easier. And heartbreaking in a way. So our work here is to deepen our practice by becoming, or inviting ourselves to become, more and more intimate with the process of this life as it unfolds, moment to moment. And through that intimacy, dealing with the energies, dealing with the hindrances, the heart-mind actually can find the way toward a different settledness and ease and stability. I actually think that part of why contemporary Dharma practice can feel so difficult, and actually can be so friendly or something toward nihilistic views. Really unconsciously, no one wants to be a nihilist, but a lot of us kind of are, secretly, without even knowing it. Part of what's, I think, so difficult in Dharma practice is that the traumas and the conditions that have created our mind states now are so deep that samadhi actually is very far away for too many people. The Dharma is supposed to be pleasurable and beautiful, and the states of the mind pleasurable and beautiful. But I know so many folks who have, who meditate for 20 years, and meditation consists of a kind of slog where you just notice once again the crazy mind doing its thing, and you come back and you develop loving kindness, and really no shade on anyone doing that. It's what I'm doing too. It's just hard to deal with this mind, but But I want us to both be like compassionate for ourselves and, determined in practice, and also to have a kind of critical mind around the conditions that shape this mind. And these conditions are cultural and social. In the Buddha's time, he said, life in the cities is cramped and dusty. It is difficult to cultivate the holy life as pure as a polished shell. But out in the wilderness, far away from people and the marketplace, my mind rests at ease with the trees, like a wild deer. And Varanasi at that time, it had like 40,000 people in it, maybe, I don't know. Less, maybe. How many does San Francisco have? 800,000? Packed into a little 7x7 grid. Like, the conditions here are not conducive to samadhi. And the media conditions are getting worse and worse. The pulls on attention are getting worse and worse. And so, I think what I want to encourage in saying all this to you is that I want you to think of the retreat container as a precious, magical field of possibility, where you can do something in your practice that is hard to do in other parts of our life, and really turn toward some of the qualities that are so conducive to well-being, so healthy and beautiful. Qualities of steadiness, of energy, of joy. When we meet any of the hindrances, as we do over and over, meeting the energy that's there. What is it? What is that pull? It's like there's an energy that's pulling me off my center. Meeting that and meeting it with both presence and the quieting of whatever story is feeding it. As soon as you quiet the story, there's just an energy in the body. Oh, it's buzzy. It's contracting. It wants to lean out. Right? Remember this piece that attention goes to wherever is the greatest charge. So any story you're telling is probably louder than silence, breathing, energy in the body. In the same way that the pain in the sit bone is louder than the softness in the back of the head. Sometimes give your attention to the pain in the sit bone. Sometimes give your attention to the softness at the back of the head. Or open your attention to the whole body. When there's a pain in the sit bone, that's a pain. But the story about it is louder. And attention goes there. Oh no, I'm getting old. I can't sit. What if I... Doubt. Doubt is louder. Doubt has more charge. It pulls the attention. Yeah. Shh. It's a sensation and it feels like this. And when you choose, you just change posture. It's no problem. So, our practice is to steady the heart and mind. Coming toward states that are precious and conducive to well-being. So that's the samatha or the samadhi side. I'm not going to say a lot about the inquiry, the vipassana side, but I'll touch it a tiny bit here. In a way, they're really inseparable. But the Vipassana side is the side that isn't just trying to settle or deactivate in the nervous system, but is the side that knows that that's not the entirety of the path to freedom. That's an integral piece. But then with that as a basis, what we are looking for is understanding, is wisdom. So even when we get, particularly when we can get a bit quiet, we turn our attention toward, like, all right, you don't even have to like intentionally turn your attention. You don't have to be like, now I'm going to switch to Vipassana practice, like you're shifting gears or something. You don't need to. Mostly, stay with steadying practice. Vipassana happens by itself. But Vipassana is the part of practice that becomes mature through experience. You know how when you were younger, at some point, let's say way younger, not to make anyone feel old, remember when you were like a teenager, right? You were 12, 13, 14. Do you remember what your favorite band was? Or like, group or thing or whatever it was? You can out yourself if you want. Simon and Garfunkel. Depeche Mode was Gen Xer here. Do you remember how you felt about them? Some of the early things you really got into, whatever it was. So emotional. Yeah. So there's a kind of like, I'm identified with this thing. I'm all about this thing. I've got posters on the wall. All the the things. I can out myself further as even a deeper nerd than that. I recorded on VHS tapes every single Doctor Who episode from 1963 to the present. This is the old series before it stopped and restarted. So I was a completist and a Whovian, of all things. Lovely show. Blessings to the gods of Doctor Who. But, I had feelings about it. I had posters on the wall, and at some point, your feelings about the thing changed. And you might still love it. Every once in a while I hear a Depeche Mode song, I hear a Simon and Garfunkel song, but like, you hear it now, and what's that like? Like maybe there's a little nostalgia, and maybe there's a little like, that's still a really good song. That's a great song. But you don't feel like a teenager anymore, do you? I mean, do you? It's like, oh my God, I love those guys. I remember when my sister was all about Ricky Martin. Yeah, Menudo. And I remember being like, good God. But the passion of a 13-year-old girl, what to do for Ricky Martin. He was very cute. For sure. But in the process of maturing, like what happens to those old passions? Maybe think of an early lover, right? And what happened to that passion? They might still be a wonderful person or not. Who knows, right? But it's all about like, what did you learn as you grew? Because as we grow, I think we learn something, not by like doing a practice. I didn't do a practice of like, now I will let go of my teenage obsessions with Depeche Mode and Doctor Who. I just grew out of them, right? And it's not that I grew out of appreciating a certain art form or a certain piece of music. I grew out of clinging to them. I grew out of identifying with them. And the result of that is not magic. It's not a mysterious, mystical state. The result is that when I encounter that sensory material, I walk into a store and a song is on the radio. I'm like, oh yeah, that. and my heart is not troubled. The result of maturity is that you have a kind of understanding, you have a kind of wisdom about the world. You've seen parties come in and out of power in the presidency enough times that maybe, right? I'm not sure about this time, but like recently maybe you've had some maturity that's like, yeah, it just goes back and forth, And but notice if you have some of that wisdom now, if you can actually draw on that, and you'd be like, oh, I think we might be in a crisis of democracy, but I also understand how societies work, and that this is what happens. Societies change, and you're around long enough to have some perspective on that, even if you still feel strongly about how it should be. And that wisdom is what clear seeing or Vipassana points toward. The Buddha's liberation practice, what he undertook after he had perfected the states of samadhi, of deep steadiness of mind and heart, what he did was he looked at the past. Wisdom practice has so much to do with memory and clear assessment of where we've been before. And I think that's why it's so closely tied to real maturity. Sometimes I think of enlightenment as just being like absolute maturity. Being mature the way an elder is, the way the best elder is, to a kind of heightened degree. What is it that makes a person an elder? There's a kind of presence that has seen and been with and been intimate with the fluctuations of life and culture and relationship and loss and gain and loss and gain and loss and gain, enough to be untroubled in their heart in a certain way. And that's why elderhood and wise people, that's why elders can give clear advice. That's why they should be teachers if they are actually wise. Because there is a quality that comes from clear memory and the way that observing the world with a clear mind brings understanding of it. You understand that, political systems come and go, pop stars come and go.
Shares forever.
Well, there's that. There's always exceptions, The wisdom that's in there knows that, part of what I think about this, which is also funny, and I think part of what's mature, what can be mature, there is that. Another thing that elders do is that they know what beauty is. They know what's beautiful, and they're not deluded by the sort of passing sparklers. It's really something to have encountered a beautiful piece of art or a beautiful performer who had a long career of just bringing such profound energy to the world, and to just know that, to honor that. And and to know in your heart that, there's also there's impermanence in that. The Dharma itself is impermanent. The Buddha said that after some arc of time, the teachings would fade. One of the main reasons they fade is people stop practicing samadhi. They stop entering the profound states. And soon the teachings are just stories, empty philosophy, empty rituals. And then they're forgotten altogether. And this isn't a tragedy. In a way, no loss is a tragedy if you zoom out far enough. It's the nature of everything to arise and pass based on conditions. This life itself. We zoom into the tragedy of losing a friend, a loved one, ourself, approaching old age and death. And then we zoom out to understand from the elder mind that death and loss is it is the flow of life. It is the ecosystem unfolding. If any living being or species did not die and their body dissolve back into the compost and the ecosystem and the elements, nothing would function. Right? It's impossible that it would be that way. And so Vipassana is the skill of growing up as deeply as you can. And you're not automatically grown up just because you're gray in hair and stiff of joint. I'm sorry to say, it's possible to be an old fool. There are many around. There may be a few in this room, although I think you're all doing really quite well. You're not old yet, so but you're working on it, Or it's elderhood doesn't come just because you rack up the numbers. It comes when there's been a willingness to engage with life over and over for a long time, to be present with what's real. And and I know this room like you've seen a lot. So many of you have been present with so much. And and the queer community has seen so much over the last decades that there's actually a beautiful, flowering of queer elderhood present in this room and in our larger communities. Because in any group that has known grief and oppression and beauty, there will be a few people who have encountered what's real there with their whole hearts and have been perhaps sometimes forced to and sometimes willing to not look away. To not look away from death and sickness and loss and oppression. And they become lights in the world. Anyone who's willing to not look away and to be present with the world as it is, if they can do that long enough and stay buoyant of heart, be supported by good friends on the path, anyone who can do that for long enough grows in wisdom, opens the Dharma eye, and becomes an elder. So may we become a light on the path for others. May we find the peace of mind and heart that is the heartwood of the Dhamma. May we become true elders. May our practice of steadiness, clarity, the courage to be with difficult states as they arise and pass, and the brightness of heart that keeps us from giving up, falling into bitterness. May our practice in all these ways be productive of well-being for ourselves and everyone. Oh, this is the invitation of retreat, the invitation of the Dhamma. So I'll leave it there for tonight. Thank you for your warm attention. Alright, so let's take a short walking period. It'll take 15 minutes or so. Come back at 9 for our closing meditation and a little chant. Mind to the space of the heart. In the heart there is a great jewel that shines of its own light, understood to be the light of infinite compassion, wisdom joined. Oh, homage to this jewel in the heart, the jewel that rests in the lotus flower of the heart. The mantra of Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani is the jewel. Padme or Padma is the lotus. And Hung is the magic spell that seals it together. Spell that is spun on the prayer wheel, waves on the prayer flags, the heart of infinite compassion. Om Mani Padme Hum. We'll close our evening with the sharing of blessings, offering the merit and benefit of our practice to beings everywhere. So, as much as I don't want to, I'll turn on the lights so we can read. It's on the last page of the chant booklet. And we'll offer the benefit of our practice for the well-being of all. Now let us chant the verses of sharing and aspiration. Through the goodness that arises from my practice, may my spiritual teachers and guides of great virtue, my mother, my father, and my relatives, the sun and the moon, and all virtuous leaders of the world, may the highest gods and evil forces, celestial beings, guardian spirits of the earth, and the Lord of death, may those who are friendly, indifferent, or hostile, may all beings receive the blessings of my life. May they soon attain the threefold bliss and realize the deathless. Through the goodness that arises from my practice, and through this act of sharing, may all desires and attachments quickly cease, and all harmful states of mind, until I realize Nirvana in every kind of birth. May I have an upright mind, with mindfulness and wisdom, austerity and vigor. May the forces of delusion not take hold, nor weaken my resolve. The Buddha is my excellent refuge. Unsurpassed is the protection of the Dhamma. The solitary Buddha is my noble guide. The Sangha is my supreme support. Through the supreme power of all these, may darkness and delusion be dispelled. Offering the benefit of our day of practice to those we love, those we don't know, and all beings everywhere. And blessings to each other at the end of our first full day of being together. So we'll go to rest. After the evening closes here formally, you're always welcome to stay and sit some more. It's beautiful to sit and walk under the starry sky. We'll have a wake-up bell at 6, and we'll rejoin here at 6:30 for the morning sitting and puja. So rest well. Blessings. See you soon.
Thank you for listening to the Gay Buddhist Forum. If you would like to hear several new talks per month and be notified of upcoming speakers so you can participate live, please subscribe to this podcast, like us on Facebook, and join our mailing list by visiting gaybuddhist.org.